District Pond Boss, tell me what to do to make all my Lunker Lake dreams come true.
Hello everybody, Bob Lusk, the Pond Boss, coming at you live with a good service today with a got a good internet connection, strong phone service, so by golly we can go live tonight without worrying about whether or not we're going to get kicked off the air. Nice. So wow, September 11th, 18 years ago, man. I don't know where you guys were, but I remember I was getting ready for my day, and as the day was starting off, I always listened to this morning radio station out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I just vividly remember the announcer, Hal J is his name. He says, something's happened, and then there was a pause. And he says, it looks like an airplane has flown into one of the towers. And I canceled all my appointments that day. I was glued to the TV, just mesmerized by the evil in humanity and the heroism in humanity. So I just want to take pause and just let you guys know that I'm thinking about that today, and I hope you are too. You know, I was thinking today about what to talk about. It's been a really interesting day, a long day. My day started at 3:30 this morning, and a lot of different things today. So I'm kind of keyed up and ready to talk to you guys. And as I thought about it, I thought, you know, what better to talk about than how to take a bunch of the different pieces of the pond management puzzle to tie them together for your pond. So that's what I'm thinking about. Looks like we got several people checking in. So let me see if I can get this thing going up. Uh-oh, I need to turn the audio off so I don't talk over myself. There we go. So, holy cow, let me see who all's up. We got Jason Nepstad, of course. Hi, Jason. Did that hurricane spinning around over toward Fayetteville? I know you guys lowered the lake, but how much rain did you get? Type that in. Let me know. Hi, Brad Rom checking in. Jaden Roberts from Nebraska. Austin Bennett. Fred Bingaman. Let's see. And I don't know who else is clicked in yet. And I know we've got, looks like 19 or 20 people. So I love to say hi to you guys, but sometimes I just don't see who's there. There's Leanne. I see Leanne. Mike Cottrell, Rudy Billings. Hey, you guys know the drill. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine in the comment section. Click like and share this to your timeline. It will make you eligible for a Pond Boss hat and a Pond Boss mug. Leanne drew a name today. Holy cow, guess who it is? Mike DeMint. So, hey, Mike DeMint, I know you'll be checking in if you haven't yet, but you are the winner. And Mike's actually coming to the Institute of Higher Pondology coming up. He's so excited, and I tell you what, I am too, this October. So let me tell you a little bit about that. It's expensive, but it's worth it. And tonight, I'm going to kind of take you through an hour's worth of what we're going to be doing at the Institute of Higher Pondology. And Mike DeMint's coming to that. Now, in the issue of the magazine, this is just right off the presses. It's in the mailboxes of everybody that's a subscriber. There's some really good stories in here, and a number of those I'm going to cover in the Institute. But basically what we're going to do with the Institute is we're going to take all the different pieces of the puzzle from water chemistry, how water chemistry affects biology of water, and how the biology affects the chemistry of the water. How those two things interact and what that does to impact that environment in which your fish live, as your plants live, where your bugs live, where your plankton grows. You know, and then we're going to start looking at all those different pieces. We're going to look at the impact of plants. We're going to look at how water quality influences plants, how plants influence water quality. You know, how the fish influence water quality, how the fish influence the plants, and how the fish influence each other. So that's some of those topics is where I wanted to go tonight. So there's Rudy Billings. Hey, Rudy. Mike Cottrell. Let's see. John Funk checking in from a very stormy Michigan. 2 inches plus. That's good. We're getting some scattered showers here in Central Texas and South Texas. Hey, Dave Gruenwald, Chad Gillespie, Mark Dauber checking in from Montgomery, Alabama. Aaron Schulte from Magnolia. You know, Aaron, I was not too far from Magnolia. I was down around Navasota last week. I'm going to be writing about that situation. It's kind of good. Christopher Aguilar, Daddy's home. Yeah, Daddy, give me my hat, he says. Hey, Jeff Connor. This is Jeff Connor. Jeff works for Purina Mills, one of our outstanding sponsors, and I love Purina Mills because over the years they have dedicated a lot of effort to research and development just for our industry. So they have invented, created some feeds that other feed companies emulate, and they are the leaders in pond management fish food, and I love it. I just love them. Ed Brewer's checking in. Hello, Ed. Ed's got the deal there. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine. Click like, share to your timeline. Thanks. Looks like we got a bunch of new comments. I'm getting behind. Danny Mac. Oh, yeah, I need to call you, Danny. I will call you. I'll see if I can call you tomorrow. My day was pretty well sucked dry. My weekend was sucked dry. There's Chris Stillman. Hey, Chris. James Sampson. Purina Mills rocks. I got it. Let's see. Yeah, he corrected it. That's cool. Good. All right, so I'm going to kind of scroll down here and see what else we got. Yep. Danny Mac, I will call you, I promise. I've had a lot of things going on, but I can make all kinds of excuses. I just hadn't called you, but I will. Let me make sure I've gotten everybody that I can see. Okay, that's everybody I can see. So, here's what I was thinking about. You guys, if you've got some questions, hit me. Hey, Billy Bates, good to see you, man. Go ahead and hit me with some questions, but here's where I want to go tonight. I want to just tell you the things that you need to be thinking about as you're managing your pond. You need to think about water quality. Now, what does that mean? Actually, in this issue of the magazine, if you don't take Pond Boss Magazine, this is a good one to start with. $35 a year. You know, my favorite little catchphrase is $35 for a year of this. And I promise you there's nuggets in each issue that you can use. Debbie and I went out to eat at a Japanese restaurant last Friday, spur of the moment. I think we spent $80. $80. Now, we had a lot of leftovers, and yeah, we had a cocktail, one cocktail each, but that was gone the next day after we ate the leftovers. This lasts for a year. And in this issue that's out now, one of the stories in here, as I thumb through it here, talk about tiger muskies. I've got people always saying, hey, Bob, let's get something for northern pondmeisters. Well, there's something for northern pondmeisters and midwestern pondmeisters. Well, another one of my favorite sections is Ask the Boss. I mean, I get some weird questions, I get some cool questions, I get some thoughtful questions. That might be the most popular article in the magazine is Ask the Boss. But let's see here. There's one in here. Here's one that's a real good one. Does fall turnover cause a problem? Does fall turnover cause problems? Christopher Aguilar signed up. Great magazine. Gosh, thanks. Now if you can just get somebody to read it to you. Fall turnover, does it cause problems? Well, I got an article about that. And just to kind of give you the Cliff's notes of that, as long as your pond has been designed well. Hey, Clark Cole, good to see you, buddy. Justin Schenck checking in from the left coast out there in California, Cali. If your water's not too... Clark E, baby. That's a cool story. We'll have to talk about that. Yep, Christopher Aguilar says, I asked him for Boudin advice. That's exactly right. And he'll tell me, if you ask him, he's going to tell you to go to Mamoo's. So, does the fall turnover cause problems? If your pond is designed right and it's not too deep, it doesn't. It's actually normal. That's what you expect every fall. And the way a pond turns over is the temperature, as it begins to drop, our days are starting to get shorter. We've got our autumnal equinox coming up on the 23rd, which is the official say hello to fall day. And the days get shorter, the temperature begins to drop a little bit. And when that happens, the water temperatures start to slowly drop till we start getting some of those Arctic fronts coming through the states. And then as the temperature drops, that warm layer of water sitting on top of that cooler layer begins to cool down, and when it matches the temperature beneath, those two layers mix. So if your water's not too deep, like 30 feet, 40 feet, then as long as you've got more volume of water above the thermocline than you do beneath it, then it's not an issue. But if you've got as much water volume beneath the thermocline as you do above it, that's when a fall turnover can be a problem. So let's see here. Edward Dostey checking in from Connecticut. Hi, Edward. Haven't seen you before. Glad you're on board. Jason says, I think we got around 4 inches. I was thinking to plant some eelgrass in the shallower parts of the creek channel. That way it will stay submerged during the lake drawdowns. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. And remember, when you plant that eelgrass, you need to protect it. So I would put a cage around it till at least it can root so the turtles don't uproot it and chew it up. Let's see here. Billy Bates. Bob, we haven't had much rain at all lately in Maryland. My pond, 4 to 5 acres, is very low. I was catching some big bass about a month and a half ago and plenty of them. Now I'm struggling. What I do catch is in the 8 to 14 inch range. Water's very clear right now. What is your opinion of what's going on? I'll tell you what my opinion is. When your 4 to 5 acre pond draws down low, your fish become concentrated because the majority of the habitat that you've got in most ponds is peripheral. So when the water draws down, it sucks out of that habitat, and the fish are all confined, and as they're confined, the big fish feed on the smaller fish. So your big fish probably are not hungry because they're gorging themselves on fish that no longer have any protective cover. And so what happens if you have a 4 to 5 acre lake that draws down to 3 acres or 2.5 acres, that fishery adjusts to that volume of water and to that surface area of water. So what's going on is the big fish are feeding heavily on the smaller fish, depleting their numbers. Now here's the follow-up. What that means is, and with warm temperatures like you guys have had, your big bass are not going to be as likely to be aggressive as often as they were when the water was higher and cooler. So now that your water temperatures are going to start to fall, your bigger bass are not hungry because they're eating those 10 to 12 inch bass. The bass you're catching that are in the 14 inch size, they're probably pretty hungry because their food has been depleted quite a bit. The 8 inch bass, I'm surprised that they're there. They're either going to grow bigger or get eaten when the lake draws down. Now here's the cool part. When the pond fills back up, and you go from a 3 acre, 2.5 acre, whatever it is, back up to that, let me see, scroll past it, 4 to 5 acres. If it goes from 2.5 to 3 back up to 4 or 5, when it does that, you're going to have 2.5 or 3 acres worth of fish that now get to expand into bigger water. When that happens, next spring you'll have outstanding spawns. There are going to be some gaps in the fishery for that size lake that's 4.5, 5 acres, whatever it is. And you're going to see the fishery expand again, and you're still going to see continued growth. So a drawdown is a good thing, as long as it doesn't stay that way. I know you've been in a drought, but if you've got some rain coming that breaks that drought and fills it back up, that'll be a good thing. So let's see. Chris Horsley says, new 4 acre pond in East Texas, lots of red clay. pH was 6.7, alkalinity was 10 parts per million. Added 12 tons of ag lime in March. pH is now 7.2. Alkalinity is 30 parts per million. Should add more lime? If so, how much and what time of the year? 4 acre pond, you added plenty of lime. 3 tons. Now, the amount of lime that you need is directly proportional to the volume of water flowing through. So for you guys that have water that's static compared to flow through with heavy rain events, your lime's going to stay put longer. The standard recommendation for water slightly acidic with low alkalinities is a ton of lime per acre. So it looks like you put in 12 tons. You put in 3 tons per acre. So you put in 3 times the recommended amount. As long as it was ag lime, which you said it was, then your alkalinity ought to rise some over the next few months. And I'd check it again. Really 20's enough, but it's really not. 40's better. 40 parts per million should be your target. Now, adding more lime isn't going to be the answer. I think the question I need to ask you is, how did you distribute that lime? If that 12 tons of lime was dumped into 3 piles, then it's going to take longer for it to be effective because there's not as much surface area of water connecting or contacting those minerals as if you spread it evenly across the whole pond by washing it off the bow of a boat. So let's see. Christopher says, I found a few snapping turtles this year on the road, and I let them loose in my pond. Future dinner. Am I wrong for doing this? You're only wrong if you want a good fishery. The thing about snapping turtles, I see Kelly Duffy. Hey, Kelly Duffy, and hi, Marta. Good to see Marta Howell, our next door neighbor. Kelly's interested in this kind of thing too. So I'm going to give you my answer on snapping turtles. Snapping turtles are typically solitary except when they're reproducing. And when they're mating, they're focused on that. And I've got a video, if I could make it work good. It's not a good video, where I kind of came. There's Jacob West. Hey, Jake. Where I got some video footage of snapping turtles mating in a pond. It's really kind of interesting because they're pretty feisty about it. But I tried to put it up, but it's not a very good video. I shot it on my phone, couldn't get close enough. Let's see. Chris says a big truck with a spinner drove around the edge of the pond. You know what? You're gonna get more contact. Check your alkalinity again in December, and I'll bet you it's above 40. I think you're fine, Chris. I think you're fine. Snapping turtles. You know, if you go catch them and turn them loose in your pond, snapping turtles eat fish, but they are also fairly solitary. So in a 3 or 4 acre pond, 1 snapping turtle or 2 snapping turtles is going to be about all it will support, and it's all that will be allowed because they fight for space. A big snapping turtle will run off a little snapping turtle. It's not common to see more than 1 snapping turtle in every 2 or 3 acres. So you got a 10-acre lake. If you've got 4 snapping turtles, that's a lot. So Christopher, what I would expect to happen, what I would think would happen would be if you keep putting snapping turtles in there, there's going to be a pecking order and somebody's going to leave. So unless you've got a fence, they're going to go to the next pond or go to the next bayou, and at some point you won't be able to turn them into boudin. Jim Liner checking in. Zach Dombeck. Hey, Zach, good to see you. Jim Liner checking in from Montgomery, Alabama. Let me go down there and see if I've missed anything here. I don't think so yet. Yep, we're good here. Oh, here's a new comment. Let's see what we got. There's Mike Rosa checking in. Good to see you. So now, at the Institute of Higher Pondology, we're going to start off with water chemistry. Then we're going to talk about the physical aspects of a pond, because the physical aspects of a pond can influence water chemistry. Now, how can that happen? Raise your hand if you know. Okay. I see 4 or 5 hands going up out of 30 people watching this show. What happens is, water being the universal solvent, anything that it can dissolve into itself, it will, which might be microscopic clay particles. It'll be minerals. It can be calcium carbonate, lime, like what we were talking about earlier. If you've limed it, if there's limestone in the dirt, it's going to dissolve into the water. If there's magnesium, if there's iron, if there's gypsum, whatever's in the soil is going to dissolve in the water. That's going to influence the chemistry of the water, which is going to impact the biology of the water. So what Chris was talking about a while ago with how much lime he's got, when his alkalinity gets to a certain point, it no longer becomes the limiting factor of preventing a good plankton bloom next spring. You get a good plankton bloom, then you're going to start to see your pH fluctuate a little bit, but you're also going to see minimal sunlight penetration, and you're not going to see obnoxious amounts of rooted aquatic plants. You're also going to see the food chain for the base of the food chain to feed little bitty bugs, going to feed plankton, going to feed amoebas and parameciums, which feed bigger insects, which feeds bigger insects, which feeds small fish, which feeds bigger fish. So when you've got your water chemistry working in your favor, which is what Chris is trying to do, then that's going to help your pond become more productive. So as it gets productive, you're going to take this alkalinity, you're going to take the fertility of the water, the minerals and metals that are dissolved in the water. Something wants to use that. And when you've got sunlight, and you've got the right temperature, and you've got food, which those things become nutrients that's dissolved in the water, something's going to grow. Now, in most cases, it'll be plankton and some kind of rooted plants. So when those plants start to grow, now our job as pond meisters is to study those plants and make sure we like them. You see Jason talking about eelgrass. Eelgrass is an astonishingly healthy plant for ponds in the right climate. Southern ponds, Atlantic seaboard, influenced by the oceans. They don't like really... Eelgrass doesn't like cold, extended lengths of time water. So that's how water chemistry affects water quality to affect productivity. There's Robbie Shell checking in. Hey, Rob, good to see you, man. Just talking about Jeff Connors checked in here too as well. And we were talking about Purina's R&D and how you guys have been a big partner to the industry of pond management and growing bigger fish. You know, I'll tell you this, without Purina Mills, I promise you, I would not be able to pat myself on the back for growing thousands of bluegill well beyond 2 pounds. And it's because they've done their homework and then put a product out there that we can use in our strategies to grow bigger, better fish. So we're thrilled to death that Sean, that the Robbie Shell's checking. I see Sean Cole checking in from Lincoln. Let's see, Jacob West is watching with his dad. Bobby, driving home from San Antonio. Well, you know, I hope one of y'all is watching the road. There's Bruce Condello. Hey, Bruce, we need to talk. I hope I can ring you after this. I'm going to have about 20 or 30 minutes because I want to visit with you for a few minutes. Debbie Dobbs Lusk is checking in. I'm so glad she's checking in. The reason we were up at 3:30 this morning is my sweet little wife had foot surgery today. So we had to have her at the hospital at 5:30 in Frisco. That's about an hour and a half drive from here. And she did that. All went well. And now she's got her foot elevated watching this show. How about that? And she shared the video. Thanks, honey. So now pretty soon some of her Facebook friends are going to see it on her timeline and they're going to check in and say hi. And if you guys will do that, you're eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat. Hey, did I tell you that? Yes, I did. And look at there, Pond Boss mug. And I still haven't seen Mike DeMint. Hey, Mike, if you check in, we've got your address. So you're going to have a hat and a mug coming. Also, you know what? We got this resource guide. So if you guys are looking for specifics about pond management products and services, go to the website, pondboss.com, click on the resource guide. We can get you a hard copy, but we also have an electronic copy. That's a good resource for you. Craig Guffin. Hey, Craig, good job. Sedalia checking in. Look at there. All right, so now going back to kind of start tying more of these things together that we're going to do at the Institute of Higher Pondology as well. You're going to learn how water chemistry affects water quality and the biology of water, how that affects productivity, and then how to measure that and monitor that. So the fun part comes in when we start looking at fish. I mean, you know, if you got a great feeding program and your water chemistry is good and healthy. Christopher Aguilar's in-laws live in Valley View. That's right around the corner. That's south of Gainesville, not far from here at all. As a matter of fact, Bruce Condello's been to Valley View because his good buddy, James Holt, the dentist from South Lake, Pond Boss subscribers, got a farm there with a really nice lake on it. And Bruce has been there fishing. So I've kind of knocked in the head a little bit about water quality, and at the Institute of Higher Pondology, we're going to get into that in more depth, but it won't be intimidating. It will be eventful and practical and hands-on. So then, once you know you got your water chemistry working right, you got your biology working right, you got plants growing, you got plankton growing in the spring and the summer, your fish are reproducing because you got habitat for them to do that, you know, which means knowing your species of fish. Where do bluegills spawn? How do they do that? How often do they spawn where you are? Do they spawn every 30 minutes or every 3 years? You know, that's the kind of stuff you need to know, and that's the kind of stuff you're going to learn when you're hanging out with me and some of the guys that are going to be on board with us. And as they spawn, how does that influence the rest of the fishery? When bass are spawning, how do they influence bluegill spawning? Or is it vice versa? Do bluegill influence bass spawns? What about threadfin shad? What about red ear sunfish? Channel cat? Do they influence? Do they impact? Do they have anything to do with spawns? You know, that's the kind of stuff you figure out. But then as these fish are growing, you're going to, you know, one of the big premises that I try to pound home with everybody is a pond's like a garden. You're going to stock it, you're going to nurture it, you're going to grow something, and at some point you got to harvest something. You know, you're not going to plant 52 rows of tomatoes and not harvest any tomatoes. Well, your pond's the same way. The difference is you can choose which fish to harvest based on your goals. You know, so we compare water chemistry, water quality, biology that influences chemistry, chemistry that influences biology, what goes on in the water, what's growing to create productivity. Ooh, something's crawling on my leg. A dadgum spider. Huh, under my desk. What's that thing doing? It's dead now. So then, how all those things come together to influence the way your fishery works. So that's the elements, the fundamental elements that we try to tie together to get you to understand what it is about managing ponds. How important is habitat? It's probably the most important thing after we make sure our water's happy and healthy. Clint Loveday, I'm mixing 2 bags a month of AquaMax, mixing 1 bag of MVP, 1 bag of 600, catching a lot of 8 to 9 inch bluegill, 13 to 15 ounces, feeding 3 times a day. Okay, let me tell you why he's doing that. The bigger the bluegill get, the bigger the feed they want. MVP, made by Purina Mills, is a high-protein fish meal-based fish food that's designed to feed different sizes and different species of fish. Primarily bluegill, feed-trained largemouth bass, fathead minnows, golden shiners, hybrid striped bass, if that's a target species for you. But what Clint's doing is he knows when MVP hits the water, there's 9 sizes of pellets, and about 30% of those pellets are small enough that they just very slowly drift through the water column so the little bitty fish underneath can feed. Because what happens when the feed hits the water, the most aggressive fish just tear it up. Well, and not all fish are aggressive. Some are, some aren't. And even though some aren't, that doesn't mean they don't have the genetic potential to grow to larger sizes. So you got to get some food in there. And of course, feeding for most people is supplemental. But when it comes to bluegill, it expedites their growth process, and it gives you a much, much, much better shot at growing some really huge fish, because you're providing them nutrition in quantities enough to influence their growth rates. And when you've got a good fish meal-based fish food like that, like Purina Mills, you're going to grow some big fish fast. So what Clint's doing is he's mixing a bag of AquaMax 600, which basically is the same formula as MVP, except the pellets are bigger. So he likes those bigger pellets to feed those 13 to 15 ounce bluegills. Because if they can eat 1 pellet and get the same nutrition that they would otherwise have to eat for 7 pellets, that makes good sense. So what he's doing is he's trying to kill a whole bunch of birds at one stone. He's trying to grow his young of the year, his year-old fish, his 2-year-old fish, and his 3-year-old fish that are on their way to stardom. That's why Clint's doing that, and that's a good move. That's a good strategy. I can remember it wasn't that long ago, probably, well, I guess that's relative, probably 20 years ago, you really didn't have a great big choice of feeds. You could feed fish with a purpose, but now you can feed fish with a program. You can feed fish and target the species, not only target the species, but you can target the sizes of the species. Rudy Billings, should I continue feeding the bluegill and the bass? Only if they'll eat it. So I'm going to tell you this, Rudy. Here's the caveats of feeding fish. If you're trying to grow big fish, use the high quality feed. That's where the AquaMax sport fish comes in. That's for fish that are carnivorous. That's for fish. Maybe I didn't kill that spider because there's something. Maybe it's a fly. I did kill a spider. Something else roaming around under my desk. Woo! Distracting. So time for a commercial. Texas Hunter Feeders. TexasHunterProducts.com. Chris Blood may check in a little bit. He's one of the big shots down there with Texas Hunter. They have absolutely got the best feeders on the market, the best customer service. It can throw your MVP, it can throw your 600. You can set it for 9 or 10. There's Lindsay West. Now she knows that she knows her boys are in the truck headed back, or at least she knows some of them are. So Texas Hunter is an outstanding feeder that you can use to feed your fish. So going back to the concept of feeding fish, expediting growth rates, trying to grow some big fish, supplementing what the pond is naturally growing makes good sense if you want to do that. Danny Mack says, I noticed for the larger pellets of MVP or optimal, the copper-nosed bluegill that are close to a pound grab the pellet, take it down, then spit it out. Then if it's not grabbed by another fish, they take the pellet again but keep it. Yes, you know why they do that? They do that because of the texture. If you're feeding your fish and you're watching them, and if you're watching them real close, real still, and you see some of them taking pellets and then spitting them out, it's because they're dry. And so now here's where the fun stuff comes in. And I hope there's Chris Blood. Check it. Just mention your name, Chris. Good to see you, buddy. So let's see. I'm reading these questions. Christopher says, I hadn't found AquaMax around me yet. You got to find a Purina dealer. And if you find a Purina dealer and they won't get it for you, you let me know, because they can get it. So let's see here. We're talking about the fish food being dry. Here's where guys like Bruce Condello, Bill Cody, guys like that think out of the box. They'll use feeders to feed their fish, but they'll also, especially guys like Bruce, because he's got a fairly consistent schedule as a dentist. He can come home, he'll take some pellets, soak them for a little bit, moisten them up, and then feed them, and the fish never spit them out. So if you find that that your fish are spitting out the pellets, you may want to spend a little bit of time, moisten some, feed them by hand, get them more accustomed to it. Once they get accustomed to it, feed less moist pellets, fewer moist pellets, and then they're going to start taking that dry pellet better. But most of the time, when the pellets hit the water, they're going to eat it. And if they spit it out, just like what Danny Mac's saying, somebody's going to eat it again. So, Clint Loveday, my Texas Sunner feeder has been going nonstop for 19 months, never hiccup. You know what? That's one of my favorite things about Texas Sunner feeders. There are no hiccups. And on the rare occasion when a feeder gets flooded, and there's a problem, a battery goes bad, charger wasn't working, wasn't pointing in the right direction, their customer service is beyond what you'd expect. I mean, that day something's coming at you when you need it. Craig Guffin says he's going to order AquaMax online from Amazon. There's Jim Morgan. Hey Jim, good to see you, man. Chad Gillespie had to request AquaMax, but my neighborhood dealer, Reader Farm Supply, helped me, and the fish love it. There you go. So he's replying to Chris. All right, let's see. Ron Ardoin, get the spider, Bob. It's behind you on the wall. Where is the spider? That's pretty funny. So let's see. Also in this issue of the magazine, let's see what else we got in here that's pretty interesting. I've got a series of stories on the history of pond management, which is really, as I've thought about it, this pond management industry is not that old. I can remember back when I started in 1980, there was not a pond management industry at all. I mean, if I wanted to get largemouth bass to stock a sport fish pond, I went to Kingman, Kansas, to Buzz Hartley's to buy northern fish, or I'd get some shipped in from Ocala, Florida, from Ron Slay. There were no big sport fish hatcheries in 1980. That all didn't start happening until the mid to late 80s. And fish food, catfish chow. That was about it. There was fish food for fish farmers, which fish farmers were raising catfish and minnows, but not so much sport fish. So now, over the years, starting about 1995, with the fish foods getting better, and now we have better feeders to present it. We've got aeration. We've got ways that we can amend the water with lime, with gypsum. We can take muddy water and clear it up. We can increase fertility with the right type, limiting factor of fertilizers to create the kinds of blooms that we want. We can move water laterally. We can move it up. Some people use water wells. So there's a whole lot of things we've got now that we didn't have then. And here's actually in this article, this issue of the magazine, I've got an article called "Water Chemistry for Dummies." So at the Institute of Higher Pondology, we're going to go over that. And then speaking of water quality woes, Dave Beasley tells a story about a lake in Louisiana, and I know that lake. And the problem with that lake, and here's a problem. See, there's regional issues that you have to think about. I mean, John Funk's got something in Michigan that we don't have to deal with in Texas. We got things in Texas that they don't deal with in Louisiana. South Louisiana's got issues that we don't deal with in Illinois. So there are issues regionally, and the one on this story that Dave Beasley with Solitude Lake Management is writing about is about a 45, 50 acre lake that is a field where they built a levee around it, kind of like a rice reservoir, and they want to turn it into a fishing lake. The problem is there's probably 250 cypress trees in the middle, and they took the dirt around the perimeter to build the levee, and they fill it with a water well. And the water well has got a lot of phosphorus in it. So the water from the water well is highly fertile as it is. Well, guess what lives in those cypress trees? Every kind of bird you can find. Not only do they roost there, there's a rookery there. So every single day there's an input of hot waste, heavy on nitrogen with some phosphorus in it that's coming from those birds. Well, that water, after about 3 years of that, rebelled really, really hard and they had a fish kill. So what Dave and his team did was to go in and analyze what was going on with the water chemistry and then what they could do to remediate it. And they used alum to bind the phosphorus. They're injecting nano bubbles of oxygen. They're moving the water to aerate it, and when the water well spits into the pond, they've got some screens where the water can spread out like a sprinkler, which allows some of the phosphorus to escape as a gas. So they're going through a lot of effort to try to figure out what they can do to clean that water up to get ahead of the birds, because the landowner, there's no chance that he's going to do anything with those birds. Let's see here. Danny Mac says, me too. He's replying to Craig. He says, our AquaMax dealer doesn't stock it, just the sport fish. Well, I'm going to tell you this. Every Purina dealer can order any Purina product. You know, and they order on it. Here's something you need to know about Purina dealers. I didn't know this till a few years ago. They don't back order anything. If you want something and you order it and they've got it in the warehouse, it'll be there next week. It'll be there on their next delivery. They typically get a weekly delivery. But if they don't have it in the warehouse, they don't keep your order. So check with them every week. And don't let them tell you, no, I can't get AquaMax largemouth. Yes, they can. They can get MVP. They can get 500. They can get, the pond fish. There's pond fish foods that are designed to feed tilapia, channel catfish, the omnivores more so than the carnivores. So yeah, you can do that. Let's see here. My company can take care of your spiders. Finally, I got a plug. Ecolab. There we go. Hashtag Ecolab. That there's you a free plug right there. You did it. Attaboy. Let's see here. Yeah, the love bug started in South Louisiana. Isn't there a song about that? Did you write that song? Hey, Eric Avery. Good to see you, buddy. So, throw me a few questions. Let's hear about it. In the meantime, I'm going to keep kind of strolling through this magazine and talk about some of the topics. And if you guys want a sample copy of it, email us your address and we'll send you a sample copy of it. Here's another one, low oxygen under ice. So you guys from the north, if you're not thinking about ice up right now, you need to be, because the things you can be doing for your water to minimize the risk of winter kill should be going on right now. Right now. And that really basically means moving the water. Like, for example, here's a pretty cool picture. That photograph right there shows how in the wintertime there's a bubbler there that's keeping some water open. They've got it right next to the shore, which is for safety. They've got it in shallow water, which is to keep from the entire lake water getting way too cold by exposing it to the atmosphere. And it also minimizes the risk of winter kill. Let's see. Jason says, is bass overpopulation as much of a concern in the lake over 100 acres? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. The spider's on my head now. Got it. Gone. So, bass overpopulation is just as big a concern in the lake over 100 acres. Absolutely it is. Matter of fact, it's compounded because it's so much harder to harvest fish out of a 100-acre lake than it is a 20-acre lake. And so here's the gist on overcrowded bass. Because if you're going to manage for largemouth bass, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when that your bass are going to get crowded. And at what size class. And I can pretty well tell you that the bass are going to get crowded over in that 10 to 14 inch size range after the third year of the original stocking. And so what a safe recommendation is after the third year of a newly stocked lake. What's happening is you've got two circumstances. You've got young of the year bass that have spawned from your originally stocked fish. They're now growing up into a slot. You've also got the males and underperforming fish that are sticking in that slot, the original fish that you stocked. And so those are the fish that need to be culled. the fish that you stock originally really need to have the chance to keep on growing and getting bigger. Let's see here. Christopher Aguilar, Boudin Man, says, honestly, if we don't have an aeration system, what are our chances of success? In South Louisiana, your chances of success, I tell you what stops your chances of success? If your water quality deteriorates, and the problem in South Louisiana is you don't really have winter. You know, you've got productive water going on from the 1st of February until the 1st of December, or the middle of December. You know, because your water just doesn't get cold at all. And that's what it takes. Water's got to get cold to give its opportunity to rest. Even though it doesn't rest when it's cold, it slows down. So aeration helps the water expedite its cleansing process. The other disadvantage you've got is you've got more predators. And when your pond gets highly productive, you're going to be inviting predators from all over the neighborhood. I mean, you guys are dealing with alligators. You know, you're going to be dealing with otters. You're going to be dealing with snakes that like to eat small fish. You're going to be dealing with some with turtles. Turtles aren't really a big problem when it comes to the fish population, but they can sure have an impact on reproduction. They can have an impact on eating your fish food. You know, they can have an impact there. Eric Avery says, Bob, I'm going to be dropping my pond a few feet to do some dirt work on the bank. Bass will do better with concentrating the fish together, but do you worry about downsides to really dropping the lake over the winter? As long as you don't have it down more than about 6 or 7 months, you're not going to hurt yourself. Because here's what happens. The weaker, smaller fish are going to get eaten. And as long as you've got some bluegill that are big enough to survive predation by your biggest bass, then you're going to be good. Where lakes get in trouble is if they're drawn down for 8 months, 10 months, a year, 2 years. When that happens, and fish don't have the ability to successfully reproduce and recruit, the odds of them rebounding drop. So, especially when you've got a few really big bass. If you've got some 12 and 13 pound bass that can eat your 8 to 10 inch bluegill and the pond stays down too long, that's when you can have an issue. If you think you're going to leave it down for 6 or 7 months, add some cover for bluegill to hide in down there after you get it drawn down to do your dirt work. So I would do something to give your biggest bluegills and your other forage fish a safe place to congregate to escape being eaten. Craig Guppin, should I keep feeding my fatheads and shiners and they stop eating the AquaMax before winter? Absolutely. Because the more you feed them, there's two things that happen, especially with fathead minnows. Fathead minnows, the more you feed them, the more biomass, the more productivity that you have, which means you're going to have way, way, way more pounds of fathead minnows. And they're going to reproduce better. Because a well-fed fish can develop eggs better. Better nutrition leads to better reproduction. So yes, feed those fish. Now your shiners aren't going to spawn until next spring, but if they go into the winter with some stored up body fat and their ovaries are in good shape, when the spring rolls around, we get through winter, they're going to reproduce. Now here's a little hint. Golden shiners stick their eggs on grass. So if you don't have some bushy pondweed, or you don't have primrose, or if you don't have something that's grassy for the shiners to stick their eggs on, put something in there. Take a couple of square bales of coastal Bermuda hay or wheat straw or whatever you can get. Break them up. Now don't do this until 10 days or 2 weeks before you think your shiners are going to spawn. And just break them up into small squares and throw them into the shallow water and let them float. They'll blow up against the shore. The shiners will find them and they'll lay eggs on them. Chad Gillespie, is there such a thing as an inexpensive, simple aeration system? You know, I wish my brain thought like that, but it doesn't. The way I look at it is what's the appropriate aeration system and then go get it. So here's the thing about an aeration system. You need to project how much air that you should move to be able to turn your pond over about every 2 days, 2 to 3 days. If you can have enough energy coming from a diffuser to move enough water to turn your pond over every 2 to 3 days, that's about the right size. If you can't turn it over faster than that, or if it turns it over, if you can't turn it over over a longer period of time, or if you turn it over too fast, that's when you start having problems with aeration systems. You don't want one that's oversized. You don't want one that's undersized. So there you go. Let's see here, Christopher Boudin Aguilar. I really hate to think how I'd adequately manage my ponds without advice from the pond boss. Hey, coming at you live, buddy. Hey, there's David Schneiderman, Easy Doc of Texas. He just signed up. He's going to be coming to the Institute of Higher Pondology. Woo! He says, need rain, small pond shrinking. At what point will the pond shrink to the point where it will not sustain bluegills? They still seem to be thriving with lots of new spawn fish. Here's what David's got. David's got a farm in southern Oklahoma, not far from here, where I am, near Lake Texoma, up north of us. North is that way. And he's got a really nice 3.5, 4 acre pond, but just above it, he's got a smaller pond that's less than 1/10 of an acre that's was pretty heavily vegetated when I looked at it a couple of months ago. And he's a little bit worried that now that we're in a little bit of a drought, we're not getting the rains we were getting back in the spring, how far can that pond draw down before he's going to have a fish kill? Here's the answer. That's going to be proportional to the water temperature, and it's going to be proportional to how many plants you've got. The more plants you have, the greater the risk of an oxygen depletion. And if I said winter kill, I think I did. I didn't mean winter kill. I'm talking about oxygen depletion in that pond. Those bluegill can live in 2 feet of water. But the problem with 2 feet of water is a great blue heron can wade in it. 2 feet of water, gosh dog, it's a fly, boys. It's not a spider, it's a fly. I killed the spider, the fly is wearing me out. How'd he get in here? One of you guys leave the door open? So, as long as you've got at least 3 feet, preferably 4 to 5 feet of water, and the aquatic plants are starting to go away, which they've maxed out now. Now that we're getting close to the autumnal equinox, you're going to start seeing plants' aggressive growth diminish. They're not going to go dormant for a while, but they're going to... Who's laughing at me over that fly thing? It flew right in my ear. I'll never forget, I worked at Six Flags when I was a teenager. Mac Davis was real popular back then, and he did a concert at the Music Mill Theater there at Six Flags after hours, and I stuck around and watched it. And man, he was belting it out, and he hit a high note, and a moth just flew right in his mouth. He started coughing and spitting. It was pretty good. And he kept on singing. It will sustain bluegills, but if the water gets down less than 3 feet, I'd want to start harvesting some bluegills, moving them into your big pond. And that's the purpose of that pond anyway. If you can wait 3 or 4 weeks and then start harvesting those fish, then I would. Yep, Jason, he's not laughing. Yeah, right. All right, guys, tell me some more questions. I'm going to keep rocking through here. One of the articles in this issue of the magazine is called Pond Harmony, Achieving Your Pond's Balance. There's BJ Cox. BJ's checking in because my wife shared the video to her timeline. See, guys, if you will share this video to your timeline, your friends will know about it, and anybody that's got a pond can listen to the pond boss. Hey, isn't that right? That's what Christopher said. He doesn't know what he'd be doing. I know what I'd be doing. I'd be doing this show. So, as biologists, we're taught to seek balance. And I've mentioned this on this show before. There's no such thing as balance. Something is always wanting to take an advantage or gain an advantage. Plants, they want, if they've got the right habitat, the right temperature, and they got food, they're going to grow. And if your pond's designed for good plant growth, you're going to get good plant growth. Now, that may not be what you want, but that's the problem is it's got the right habitat. But if you got too many plants, then you may have, like, for example, if I looked at a lake the other day that's probably 70% covered with hydrilla. That lake is loaded with bait fish, but no fish can get, no bass can. The bass are skinny. They look like long distance runners. They look terrible. So now the city of Clarksville is going to kill as much hydrilla as they can in that community lake, and that's going to free up those bait fish for the bass to begin to feed. The problem is It's taken about 2 years for that hydrilla to consume 60 to 70% of the lake. And it's had a huge impact on that fishery. And I know anglers love hydrilla. I hate hydrilla. You know, anglers love it because they can launch their boat at the ramp, go fish the edge, catch some fish, go in a tournament, get some money, load their boat, and leave. When they leave, everybody around the lake gets to live with it. You know, and that's a highly invasive plant that has a huge impact on each fishery. Hi, BJ. Jason says, can stocking bait fish yearly help with the issue with stunted bass due to overpopulation? That's a great question. I'm going to tell you the answer to that is no. Now, that needs an explanation. Let's say that you've got a lake where everything is conducive with the water quality, the habitat. If it's conducive to grow a population of overcrowded bass, that's what it's going to do. And you can money whip it all day long. But until you change the reason that the fish are overcrowded, they're going to be overcrowded. Here's a big example of that. Let's say that your bass are crowded into the 10 to 12 inch size class, and you spend $10,000 on bait fish. And then the bass go from 10 to 12 inches to 12 to 14. Then they're going to overeat the food chain. You know, until you can figure out how to seek the balance by harvesting adequate amounts of those fish that are tending to be overcrowded, and until you can grow enough big fish to help you cull fish, that's one of the goals. What I tell you, a stocking program that can work where it's legal is you can stock some tilapia. Tilapia are more productive than bluegill, more reproductive than bluegill, where they thrive. And what tilapia do is they increase the odds of survival of your other forage fish. And then in the fall, since they die when the water gets cold, when the water temperature starts to drop, they get sluggish, the bass gorge themselves, and then you've had a higher survival rate of bluegill going into the winter. Now that's an effective supplemental stocking program. But if your lake is tending toward overcrowded bass and you try to supplement bluegill, all you're going to do is prop it up. That's a good way to look at it. You're going to prop it up. So we've got a number of lakes where I know that the landowners that we've got under management are not going to harvest enough fish. So we'll try to help them with the electrofishing boat, but we also we have advised them to build some hatchery ponds, which they do, and they supplementally stock fish. And it is beneficial, but it doesn't solve the problem. Let's see here. Eric Avery says, are you going to sell any subscriptions for Facebook live feed to a few of your classes of the Institute of Higher Pondology for people who can't make it this year? I'll tell you what, hey, David Figg, good to see you, man. Hope things are well over there in Georgia. Eric, I have hired Mike Chico Garcia, a professional videographer, who's going to tag along with us the whole time at the Institute of Higher Pondology. So I'm trying to decide what to do with those videos. I'm not sure that I want to spend a lot of money and time on creating videos of a lecture, but on those lectures that make sense, we will, and we'll put the PowerPoint in with it. But what will really be key is the hands-on. We're going to do a lot of hands-on. We're going to do plant identification. We're going to do water chemistry and how to interpret the data. We're going to be collecting fish a variety of ways: electrofishing, seining, gill nets, trap nets. So we're going to be using these different fisheries tools, and we're going to video those things and talk about how those tools work, and then how do you interpret the data that you've collected from those tools. Because what you get in a fight net, for example, is going to be different than what you get in a gill net, which is going to be different than what you get from electrofishing. So when you collect all this data and you compare it, that's when you can start making some smart decisions about the fishery. And we're going to video all that. Now, I don't know how we're going to use it, but we are going to video it and see what we can do with it. The Institute of Higher Pondology, I got two things going on here. I'm going to have it all day long. When I say all day long, 8 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, basic pond management. course. That's going to be just a fast-paced water chemistry, water quality, pond construction, habitat, forage fish, stocking, genetics, harvest plan, and tie all that together. That's going to be a fast-paced $250 if you want to come to that. That includes a catered lunch. So that's how we're going to do that. And then we got the Institute of Higher Pondology, which is going to start that afternoon. Let's see, that's October 24, 25, 26, 27, I think. And for everybody that wants to pay the $1,500, they get the basic pond management one and all the hands-on, and where we go deeper into the, not only do we go deeper into the concepts, we go deeper into the reality and the practical stuff. How do you use it? How can you gather information? How can you enjoy your pond better? What are some things you can do to make your pond better and then enjoy it better? We're going to take a tour around LL, 2. We've got catfish ponds. We've got a swimming pond. We've got some culture ponds where we're growing bluegill. We've got an experimental pond. We've got an old pond that's full of Japanese koi and a few bass and bluegill and stuff. You're going to see feeders. You're going to see docks. I haven't talked to David Schneiderman yet, but I'm going to see if he can bring some easy dock stuff to show it. We got a Tommy dock coming. So, you're going to get to do a whole bunch of touchy-feely stuff, and you'll have my cell phone number, and we'll be able to talk anytime you want. Let's see. Yeah, Jacob West, he's going to be there with his dad, Bobby. He says, we're going to be movie stars. You already are a movie star, dude. You just don't know it. So there we go. So I'm going to kind of wrap this up. Achieving your pond's balance. What I was going to say a while ago is you really can't achieve balance. But what you can do is you can understand those nuances and understand when your pond is tipping or when your lake is tipping. Like Jason Nepstad, you know what, Jason, we could tour a fish hatchery. There's a fish hatchery on the way. We're going to go to a cool ranch, about a 7,000-acre high-fenced game ranch with a 70-acre lake, a 20-acre lake, and a bunch of hatchery ponds. We're going to be going right by Ainsley Fish Farm. I'll call them, see if we can pop in and see them for about an hour or see what they got going on then. They're kind of winding down a little bit because they're getting old and worn out, but it's still a cool place to go look at, especially if you like inventors. So, balance we seek, balance we don't achieve. So, if you understand why a pond is tipping one way or the other, then you can know what to do about it. Do you need to feed fish, harvest fish, deal with plants? What do you need to do to tilt your pond to get it like you want it? See, Danny Mack says, we were harvesting the bluegill females and tossing back the large males. Seems like now we catch 90% of the big males. I think they're just more aggressive. Your thought? My opinion is the males are more aggressive, and my opinion used to be they get bigger. But I now believe that there's a percentage of the females that can get just as bigger, and their weight is a little bit skewed when they're full of eggs. So I've actually seen some 12-inch female bluegills that weigh 2 pounds and 6 ounces compared to a 12-inch male that weighs 2 pounds and 3 ounces. And the only difference is that little marble-looking thing in their belly called ovaries. And so... and I do think males are more aggressive, especially when they're spawning. Now, they may not eat your bait when they're spawning, but they're aggressive, and they're going to fight anything they can that's invading their nests. And that's part of the reason I have people build spawning beds in greater quantity than I used to. So there's a whole bunch of nuances, and we're going to hit all those, all of them I can think of. I've been working on the curriculum. Been working on the itinerary. I've got the itinerary figured out. Now I got to keep working on the curriculum, and those are the kind of things we're going to hit. Let's see here. Chris Rigoni, hello from the Upper Peninsula. Trout are doing great after one full year. I would credit this to the MVP fish food they devour every day in the spring-fed one-year-old pond. Thanks for all the info. Hey, I got a question for you, Chris. Will that pond, I know it's going to freeze up, but do you still have water flowing under the ice? And if you do you measure the chemistry, the oxygen? Oxygen meter in your case might be a smart thing to have, especially if you want them to overwinter. The thing about feeding fish in the Upper Peninsula is that trout are going to convert that MVP like 1.2 to 1. So the conversion rates are high, but you're still going to have a little bit of waste. And I'd like to know how that influences your water, not your water chemistry as much as your oxygen. So hey, at 7:30, this hour flew by. I appreciate you guys checking in, tuning in, hanging out, and glad we had a good cell connection and a good internet connection so we could chit-chat with you for the full hour. And I'll be checking back in next Wednesday, probably from right here. I'm not planning on being anywhere else. So thanks for coming. Thanks for hanging out. Adios.